And so at this time, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our speaker and our topic. He's going to tell you, of course, a little bit more about himself and what he's talking about, but we're joined by Dr. O.P. McCubbins. He is an assistant professor in agricultural education, leadership, and communications at Mississippi State University. And we're very thrilled to have him. He's going to be talking about enhancing pesticide safety through the 360-degree videos in the Gear Up for Ag program. So like I said, he's going to share a little bit more about himself and this program and the 360 videos. So I'm going to turn it over to him and we'll get started.
Yeah, well, excited to be here. Thanks for joining. I'm excited to talk to everyone about this particular project. I do need to be clear up front, though, that we're not going to be able to roll out any of the pesticide 360 footage. Just we're not at that stage in this project, but I'm going to explain kind of the purpose behind it, our process, because we've done this before with another project focused on ag health and safety in cattle handling. But super excited to share some of this work with you all today. As was mentioned, my name is O.P. McCubbins. I'm an associate professor. I'm a teacher educator. I train future ag teachers. But I also realize the importance of training those ag teachers to be good stewards and to prepare their students for the world of work within agriculture, which includes safety. So on the research side of things, my focus is really on the use and impact of immersive technology for teaching and learning in and about agriculture. So how can we leverage immersive technology to teach people about where our food comes from, how to be safe on the farm? How do we leverage it as teachers to teach our students this? So that's really where this work kind of intersects with my job at Mississippi State. So we're going to get started. There is a Q&A function built into this platform, so please do feel free to pop questions in the chat. I will try to keep up with those as we go, but if not, I promise I'll get to it at least at the very end. I'll try and get any of the questions that pop up into the chat. So let me do some adjustments. Is the Q&A popping up in the screen for you all?
I think you would have to select it, but it should be there. It should be an option in the menu bar.
I see it, but I don't want it. It's like blocking my view.
Oh, okay.
So
I think you can X out of it.
Yeah.
And then it should like
things.
A little like icon should pop up if there is a question, but we can also use the chat too throughout.
I am just because of that. Does that size work? Can you see all of that? This will make it easier. Perfect. All right. So we'll just go through it this way. So our agenda today, we're going to start off with a funding acknowledgement, introduce the team that is participating or has been participating in this project. I'll provide a little bit of an overview of immersive technology for those that might not be familiar. Provide an overview of the production process that I have found to be beneficial. Share some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. That way, in case anyone's interested in kind of getting into this space, you've got a leg up on where I started. And then I will share some example 360 content, some virtual tours, some video clips, and some other interactive 360 still images. So I want to first acknowledge that the funding for this project was provided by the Pesticide Educational Resource Collaborative. The Ag Health and Safety Alliance submitted a proposal to develop, maybe not develop, but they have an existing Gear Up for Ag Health and Safety program. But the emphasis in that there's not really been a strong emphasis on pesticide safety. So this particular project, the proposal really has two main objectives. And the piece that I'm involved in is the one to basically revise some of that curriculum to have an additional emphasis on pesticide safety. So many of the participants in the existing or previous ag health and safety programs, they've noticed that there was a lot of issues, folks not wearing proper PPE when handling pesticides. In Mississippi, where this project is going to focus, part of the project is going to focus, there's not a whole lot of like certified respirator fit testing. So another piece of this is increasing the amount of folks that are trained to do respirator fit testing. Back to the curriculum side, the specific piece that I'm really involved in is the development of 360 video to enhance pesticide safety, specifically 2 experiences focused on donning and doffing PPE. So some of the previous work that I've done, we've done some animal manure management, carcass handling, and we've delivered that content to extension agents through 360 video. We've had tons of positive feedback. We did the cattle handling experience, tons of positive feedback. So we're going to keep this train rolling. Now, the team that's working on this, the folks at Ag Health and Safety, Carolyn Sheridan and Jenna Gibbs are the masterminds. And then I'm also serve on the board of directors for Ag Health and Safety, just so that's out there. But at Mississippi State, myself and Dr. Jesse Morrison over in Plant and Soil Sciences, who has research facilities on one of our farms, has also been helping out. He's the one that provided the space for us to capture the content for these videos. So it does take a village. It's not something that I'm just out doing by myself and pushing. It's really a team effort. And then now into this immersive tech overview. Immersive technology or extended reality is really just an umbrella term. And under that umbrella are 3 main specific types of technology. Augmented reality, which uses markers or location to trigger a digital artifact overlay on the real environment. If you're familiar with Pokemon Go's got an AR feature where you can see, Pikachu pop up on your desk. Amazon has an AR feature so you can see what a couch looks like in your own living room. VR is oftentimes a completely simulated environment within a system, whether that's a standalone VR, fully immersive, mobile VR, etc. And then mixed reality is the merging of real and virtual worlds for coexistence and real-time interaction. So it's kind of a mixture between the AR and VR side of things. But where does 360 video fall on that? Well, if we think about these things as on a spectrum, on the far left, we have things that are less immersive, traditional media that we use for teaching and learning, 2D video and pictures. On the very far end is 6 degrees of freedom, fully immersive VR, but that costs a lot of money to develop, requires a lot of technical skills to create. So I have found a sweet spot, especially with my teacher educator hat. Got to find something that's cost effective, easy to implement, easy to use. 360 video has been that sweet spot. Now you've got 360 video and pictures that you can view on a 2D interface, which is a little less immersive. And then you can take those same videos and put them in a VR headset, a Meta Quest, something like that, and that becomes more immersive. So as I'm creating this content, I try to make it where it's device agnostic. You can view the experience on your phone. You can view it on a computer. If you've got a headset that you can pop a phone in, you can do it there. It takes it up a level. But we're really focusing in on this center part, headset. That's our desired mode for people to consume this content, but we realize not everyone's got those headsets. So why 360 video to begin with? Well, several reasons. One is it enhances engagement. 360 video engages viewers more effectively than traditional videos. Think back to that spectrum. It provides a sense of presence and immersion throughout the experience. So it makes an individual feel like they're actually in an environment that they're not. We transport them somewhere else. It helps with improved retention. So the immersive nature of 360 video helps to improve that retention and recall by making the learning experience more memorable. Walking a mile in someone's shoes makes it memorable, which in the long term increases retention. It allows for practical demonstration, very detailed practical demonstrations of procedures, such as donning and doffing PPE, that you can actually view from multiple angles. So you can look at it from different angles in the experience. And it adds some interactive learning elements. So some videos, 360 videos, offer these interactive elements, such as clickable hotspots, quizzes or assessments built in. You could actually have branching scenarios. So they make a decision, and based on that decision, they go one way or the other, which ultimately enhances the learning experience. So some applications in education and training, especially as it relates to ag health and safety, is you can have simulations scenarios. You can create realistic scenarios because you're capturing a real environment. You can do that for training purposes, emergency response drills, equipment handling. So it also alleviates some of that safety concern. So we think to the cattle handling experience I mentioned earlier. You've got tons of students eager to be veterinarians, but they've never worked with large animals. Well, if we can recreate that experience, they can learn some of those skills for handling cattle in this simulation. Hopefully that's transferable. So we alleviate some of that safety concern on the front end. Tons of remote learning application. They can facilitate that by providing that training environment that can be accessed from anywhere. This also enhances accessibility and convenience of learning on demand. And then skill development helps learners develop practical skills because, again, they're experiencing it. It's just not real life. That visual and interactive guide provided by the 360 videos can be revisited as often as necessary. So now, and I am just going to pull up our Q&A just to that's situated. All right, I don't see anything in there, so we're going to keep rolling. I'm going to walk you through the production process and share some of the tips and tricks that I have learned along the way. This framework is a framework that I developed, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago when I got into exploring immersive tech. There's so much out there for how to get started, what to do. So I wanted to have this really simplified framework for creating 360 content. And we start at the very top, plan and prioritize. So you have to think through what it is you want to capture. What is the experience going to be? What are the objectives? What's the purpose? What type of scenes will you include in that experience? How will you direct attention inside the experience? Because when we capture in 360, it captures everything in the environment. So if I were to place a 360 camera in my office, it captures everything, whereas standard captures what's in front of it. So we really got to think about how we're going to direct attention, because if I want them focused on my actor in the front that's donning PPE, they also have the ability to turn around and look elsewhere. So are there ways that I can direct their attention so they're focusing on what they should be focusing on? For the prioritized piece of step one, developing that storyboard. I'll talk a little bit more about that here shortly. Then we move to step two, connect and check. Make sure all your equipment's working. Make sure your phone is charged, because you control the 360 camera. You can control it through an app. You can control it on the physical device itself, but I like having the preview. So make sure all of your cables are working. Make sure your devices are charged. All of that necessary stuff to ensure that the tech is working as it should. And we move to step three, shoot and save. This is when you're actually capturing the content. There are several things that you need to consider. The placement of the camera, how high it is, what's the lighting? Are you going to be outside? So are you going to have saturated images, etc. Step four, evaluate and edit. Review the content. Did you capture what you needed? Edit what you did capture. If you didn't get what you needed, go back, capture it, bring it in, edit. Then finally, package and promote. So get it into whatever platform, if it's going to be a video that lives on YouTube, push it out. If it's going to be on ThingLink or some other platform, you're just piecing that full experience together based on the objectives that you set out in step one. And then promote. It doesn't do any good if you have this content that just lives out there and no one's using it, as long as it's useful, maybe. So make sure that it is promoted. Some of the previous work that we've done is included in some of the ag health and safety Gear Up for Ag programs. They may use it as an additional thing, but it also lives on their website so people can access. A lot of the work that I create, the content that I create, I'm sharing it with my pre-service teachers. I'm delivering workshops at in-service events, training teachers how to utilize that particular content. Hey, we don't have headset. Hey, that's perfect. You can have your students watch it on their own smart device or watch it on a computer screen. It all still works. So then let's dive into a couple of these pieces a little bit further. To get started, you first have to have a 360 camera. Again, as I explained earlier, a 360 camera captures the entire environment. There are several 360 cameras on the market. A couple that I recommend are the Insta360 X3. The Insta360s are kind of my everyday carry cameras. About $400 or so. If you get like the package with extra cards and some other supplies, it could push up to $600. And then Theta makes some incredible cameras. Those are more high end. Theta X is going to run you about $750, $800. And then the Theta Z1, which is the one that we utilized for this particular experience for the pesticide safety, that one is going to be just over $1,000, and that doesn't include the monopod and all that other stuff, which is stuff that you'll need to get started. A tripod will work in a pinch, but you do end up with a lot of cleanup afterwards, or you have a pretty visible area at the bottom of your sphere that you can see. With the monopod, it disappears. Highly recommend an external hard drive. the size of files that you get out of 360 videos, especially if you're capturing in 4K or above, they're massive. There are sometimes some of these experiences that we're developing just in an hour of shooting and capturing, we're looking at, we're pushing 100 gigs. So if you have a multi-day shoot, you have a very large project, you're going to do several things. I mean, it eats up memory really quickly. So I wouldn't recommend just having that on your laptop or computer. Have an external hard drive that's built for this. That way you back it up, but you also are saving space on your own device. Monopod and lavalier mic. I mentioned the monopod tripod thing. Lavalier mic, if you're going to be in an environment where it's not really noisy, the built-in microphones on the cameras are pretty sufficient. They'll actually capture dialogue. They'll capture, if there's you want machine wearing or you want to hear animal noises, it'll pick that stuff up. But if you want really crisp audio, if you're going to be having conversations between individuals and there's a lot of background noise, having that lavalier mic will allow you to have a separate audio track. So when you're editing, that dialogue the volume can be bumped up and you can cut back the volume from the video that you captured. So that just helps if you're going to be doing any kind of conversational type stuff with 360 video. And then gaffer's tape and cable ties. Sometimes you've got to put cameras in really weird positions. And I don't want $1,000 camera tipping over and cracking a screen on the concrete because I didn't have some tape to make sure it was stable. So those things just kind of help you ensure that your device is protected and also that you can capture the scene how you want it to be captured. Now, when you actually start capturing, there are several considerations. The audience. What's the format? Are these going to be high school students, college students, farmers? That will help you design your final experience. The format, is it going to be still? Is it just going to be a still image 360 tour? Is it going to be an actual video where I'm trying to teach them something? Those are all things to think through. People and objects in the scene. It's a 360 camera. I'm capturing the content. If I don't need to be in the scene, I've got to think about a place to hide. Also, if we're capturing in a somewhat public space, letting people know that, hey, we're shooting this video, it's 360. If you're in this particular area, you may end up on the camera. So thinking through those things, if you need to get approvals, work through your institution to make sure that you're meeting all of your institutional policies for doing that. I put stabilization in here because it's still important, especially if you buy an older camera. A lot of the newer cameras will have built-in image stabilization. So if there's any kind of movement that you're doing with the camera, 360 video that's shaky can make an individual feel nauseous. It can be really upsetting. So that stabilization helps to ensure that the final product is not going to make the people that we want to use it get nauseous. Audio, again, back to the lavalier mic stuff. Spacing. This 360 camera, there's a stitch line, so you want to try and have everything about 4 or 5 feet out from it, because if not, you might end up with someone in a stitch line and then they look kind of funky in the final product. And then shot height. I typically suggest is doing an average height slightly below 6 foot, maybe 5'8" is where the camera should be. If you capture it really low to the ground, if an individual is in a headset, it can be also discomforting. It can provide some possibly even nauseous. Same thing if you place it really high, it makes them look down. So you want to think about these things as you're actually capturing the content for your final product. So we get into the true pre-production phase. That first plan and prioritize that I mentioned in my framework. You got to plan the script. You want to make sure that if there are specific things that you've got to capture or specific things that need to be shared in it, you want to make sure you've got that down. You want to sketch a storyboard. I'll show you an example storyboard here in a moment, but sketching that out helps you to think through those considerations I mentioned on the previous slide. What objects are going to be in the scene? When I get there to capture, how can I dress the set to only have the important things in focus so that people aren't getting distracted and looking off to the left or the right, and they're not focused on what I want them to focus on. And then developing the actual shot list. I like to try and go in order as much as possible. So if we're doing a donning experience and a doffing experience, I want to capture all the donning stuff first, and then we'll go through and do all the doffing stuff. That helps me stay organized with files and everything. And it also ensures that all of the particular components for one experience are grouped together. All the particular components for another experience are grouped together. So here's a sample organizer that we are using for the pesticide safety. So we did all of they did the script, the curriculum stuff, they did the storyboards, and then we also take that and put it in this table format. And this helps as we're going to capture the content, but it also becomes really useful when we get into the editing stage. The Ag Health and Safety folks are in Iowa. I'm in Starkville, Mississippi. So this allows us really quickly to communicate each of the scenes that we've identified, what needs to be in the scene. Are we going to have text overlay? And I'll show you some examples at the very end of what that text overlay could look like. Is there a voice recording? So several of the things that we do, we leverage voiceover. So if we do, what file number, and then the content of the voice recording, and then any images or overlays that need to be added into the scene to highlight information or to show what a completed product looks like for proper PPE. So that's a sample organizer. This is the storyboard that I mentioned. This black dot in the center, that's the camera. Everything else you sketch out. You can do it on a computer program. You could also just sketch it in with pen or pencil. But, you know, if I was going to capture my office, I was going to place the camera in the center, you know, I'd sketch my desk in actually get my bearings in this back corner. I'd sketch my storage cabinet in this corner. I'd put my editing desk in this top right corner, and then bookshelves along this wall. I'd have some chairs in the middle. So this just helps you to visualize before you go out to actually capture the content. Do I need to bring in material? Do I need to remove material from that particular scene location? So this helps in the planning process before we actually go to capture, so we know, all right, we don't have this, or where we're going to shoot doesn't have this. We need to acquire it and make sure it's out there for us when we actually begin capturing. So then again, we move into the actual production piece. We're capturing footage. We've done our script. We've done our storyboard. We're going to be filming in 360. We also want to take any standard photographs or identify points of interest that need to be included for overlays in the final product. Always important to consider camera placement and lighting throughout your shoot. That's why I prefer utilizing my cell phone to control the 360 camera, because I can get a preview of the actual image or video. I can see if it's too saturated. I can make adjustments on my phone, where it's a lot more difficult to do that on the device itself. Here are some examples of those standard photographs that I mentioned. This right here is a little notice inside the PPE storage cabinet. These are completed PPE. This is an example storage. So in those scenes in the final product, these things will pop up so that they become the main focus, and the voiceover will explain what's going on. Here's what you're seeing. Here's why it's important. Here's what a proper PPE looks like for X chemical. And then we're also showcasing some of the different cartridges that you can use on your half-face mask respirator. So those will be popping up throughout the experience to highlight those particular things. As we move into post-production, which is actually the stage we're in right now, if your camera requires you to stitch the images, you've got to stitch those. You want to clean up and edit any of that raw footage. I typically, before we start a scene, if we're doing like an individual getting ready to put on PPE for a specific chemical, I usually like to start, capture 10 to 15 seconds just to make sure we don't miss anything, and then they'll start whatever actions we're having them do. So in this phase, I'll clean up any of that extra. I'll get rid of it. That way, when I start piecing this footage together, it's seamless. It all flows together really nicely. You can also organize assets. So I've got a folder that has 360 files, still image files, audio assets, all of that. Just it keeps it really clean. I edit. I should have mentioned this earlier. I edit in Premiere Pro or Final Cut Pro. Both work. There are some others, DaVinci Resolve. So I use mainly Premiere Pro, but I have been tinkering a little more lately in Final Cut. And if you're not familiar with those platforms, you want to be organized so it makes it easier once you're in there actually editing. Then you're going to actually edit the experience, add those interactive elements, pull in that audio file for the voiceover, get it put in the right spot on your timeline. And then if you're doing it for yourself, you don't have to do this next piece because you're going to be doing that throughout. But then I will send this initial experience over for this one, particularly to the Ag Health and Safety Alliance team in Iowa. They'll provide feedback. They'll send it back. And that's what we use that table I showed earlier for. They'll provide some feedback, documented on there. It'll come back to me. I'll make those changes and I'll send it back. And we'll do that process as many times as it is needed. I think for the cattle handling experience, we went through that iterative process. I think 4 times before we were happy with the final result, and it looked like what it was supposed to look like. And after that, you're rolling out the experience. People are learning how to handle cattle. People are learning how to put on PPE, learning how to take it off properly. And before we get into the experiences, I'm going to check the Q&A if I get it full. All right, I don't see any, so we'll keep rolling. If you've got questions or comments, please pop them in that particular panel. So the next few slides are just some examples of things that I have created in the past. This is a still image virtual tour. This was created with the Texas A&M College of Veterinary Medicine on a rural veterinarian project. So we've got our 360 image, and we also have audio. And I don't think I have it routed to go through, but it's an introduction to this particular animal hospital. And then we can click and we're transported into the next area. waiting area, exam room, go into the pharmacy lab. So all of this was captured as 360 still images. The treatment and prep area. So that's an example of a virtual tour using 360 images. This is an example from that same project of new arrivals arriving in a feedlot. Keep the volume down. It's got some soft music playing, but we're not really gonna worry about that. This was created 2019, 2018. So she shares this video in her class, and she's got specific instructions that she provides. So there's not a whole lot of on-screen info for the students. That's all provided by the actual individual using this video. But oh, it's not. So this is a 360 video, but since it's embedded in PowerPoint, I can't click. But if I actually view it on YouTube and I click, my view changes. So their instructions are to watch the pen writer and take note of what they observe he's doing. And what he's doing is he's trying to identify any sick cattle so that they can be separated before they get pushed into some of the main pens at this feedlot in West Texas. This is the cattle handling experience that I mentioned. Again, because it's embedded in PowerPoint, I can't click through, but if you actually view it in YouTube, you can click and drag and your perspective changes. But you can see some of that text overlay that I was mentioning earlier. Right here. So an initial team meeting, then he's inside getting some of the pens set up to push cattle through. This is a standard image that pops up that shows the flight zone for cattle. So they can learn about that flight zone, but then they can actually see it, see how Sully here is using that to push these cattle out of this pen. And then this one goes all the way through to administering medication. And then this is this is actually from our pesticide project. This is a still that I snagged out of one of the videos, but just to show you a range of the doffing part. This is doffing when you're not near a wash station. Hey, we've got a mobile wash station. We've got this container for us to put our contaminated items in, our boots, all of that. Again, it's 360. And you can't see me, but I'm actually hiding on the other side of that tractor tire. That's where I'm at, controlling the camera while we're capturing this. And with that, I thank you for tuning in today. Happy to answer any questions, listen to any comments, or anything you want to contribute. My contact info is there if you would like to reach out. You know, if you have ideas, we are trying to expand the amount of content that we've got. Hopefully very soon we'll have students trained up so that we can speed up some of this production process and have more things out there for folks to engage in. So we've got some questions. How did you host the vet lab tour? David, that was, we captured the content, and then that particular platform I used to build that tour was a platform called ThingLink. It's a pretty affordable platform. I think I pay $36 a year for that. There are higher tiers, but for what I'm using it for that tour, $36 a year is all that I need. Can I share some links to my videos on YouTube? I certainly could. I don't have them available right now. Couple of things. You could send me an email and I'll send you some, or you can just go to YouTube and search OP McCubbins, and then some of those videos are on my page there. Not everything is public, so some things, like if you wanted like we've got a field necropsy one, that one is not public. That you'd have to get permission from the folks to be able to access that one, but I do have some sample videos on there. Hey Carolyn, typical timeline from start to finish. Carolyn, it just depends on the individual. Depending on how quick and proficient they are at the platforms, I mean, 3 to 5 minute experience video wise is my recommendation. The planning part, the capturing part, the edit part, you know, it could take a couple of weeks. If they have a full-time job like I do outside of this, sometimes it takes a little bit longer. A couple weeks to a couple months, and you've got an experience that you're ready to roll out to the masses. Paulina found the channel. Perfect. Good. All right. I think I have answered all of the questions that were in the Q&A. With that, Philip, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. McCubbins. That was wonderful. And I really do appreciate you going into a lot of the detail there of the process of how you do it. I had a question about how many people, when you were developing like some of the work with livestock, like how many people did you have working with you to do everything from storyboarding, filming, and production?
Yeah, so for that one, it was there were 3 main people on the planning part, and then for the actual capture part, you know, we utilized a farm here on campus, so I pulled in the farm manager, and I think we had 3 students that volunteered to be the actors in that experience. So in total 5.
Right. Okay.
But on the planning part, 3.
Yeah.
On pesticide safety part, there are 3 of us: Carolyn, Jenna, myself. And then for the actor part, that's where Dr. Morrison, actor, location, all of that, equipment, supplies, Dr. Morrison, because he's got that farm out there. We
Great.
had two of his students that helped us act.
Great. Yeah, no, that's helpful. Yeah, because it's this really cool technology, and yeah, it's a lot you can do with just a few people, and you know, a few content experts and a few tech experts and everything.
And
yeah,
that's the important part. Once you decide what the experience should be, is making sure you've got content experts, subject matter experts. And that makes my life a lot easier because I don't have to go digging to find, oh, what do I need to say here? So yeah, making sure you got the right people on the team is super important. That's why I'm super thankful for Carolyn and Jenna with Ag Health and Safety Alliance.